Yellow. What am I talking about today? The unintentional villainess, blah blah blah, garbage, who cares? Bad story, no. No, if you haven't watched these videos before, I generally give like a basic rating, and then I go into why I gave it that rating. Yeah, before we get into anything, like, subscribe, blah blah blah, I'd appreciate it, but I don't really care. Yeah, okay, this story. What would I give it? Huh. Like a 6? Alright. Not gonna lie. When I was reading this story, you know, it was kind of fun. It was kind of fun. But I felt like the idea was so that it was kind of like a okay, let's get through it. Like it was like every once in a while you get like a fun moment, but then like you look at the big picture and you're like, that was all right. Like I really can't say it was incredible or anything. It was all right. What's the gist? Well, you know, I know this is gonna come as a shock. I know it will, but it's an isekai. What? An isekai? Yeah. This character gets reincarnated into an isekai. We're old into a new world. Into an isekai. Into a new world. You wouldn't guess this one, but she's the villainess. You would never guess this. I guess like the fun idea that takes place in this series is that, well, there's a couple of implications that come about from the series that I'm not going to talk about anything that happens like late in the series. I'll probably only talk up to like, I mean, 30 chapters in at most. But there's some fun ideas in the series. As far as like characters go, nothing is original. The only thing that I would say, okay, that's a little false, because the only thing I will say is that aside from her, right, which, okay, she has this, I guess you would call like mission system that you often see in like an isekai story, where like there's a pop-up and it tells you, you know, do this, do that, and you get rewards, right? But the idea is, you know, her missions are always something villain related, you know, adjacent. Like you have to hit somebody or do something bad. The unique idea in this series is that at least one other person has like a similar thing going on. But they're like, you know, kind of trying to hide it, and it's kind of like an idea of like, oh, like she's like they're finding out that she has it, and then she's kind of having like hunches that they might have the system, but they have different systems, so they have, you know, different quests that are given to them. And the idea is that the system is like originating from this world specifically, not necessarily like, oh, it's a system that she was given when she came to that world. There's inclinations and hints toward her possibly originally coming from that world, so it might not even necessarily be an isekai. There's hints at the fact that, you know, maybe this system like removed her from her body for a brief period of time and then brought her back, you know, at a later date. You know, there's hints at things, which are kind of interesting, but they're not really, you know, I feel like they're not hit as fast as they should be if you want to get these things involved in the story, which is kind of disappointing. Also, you know, all the relationships are so loose. Like, her character has been mistreating people for years because of this system, but people, like, as soon as she swaps personalities, it's like a dime, you know? It just flips right back to where they were previously. Like, oh, nothing ever happened. Like, now she's, you know, an angel. We love her. And, you know, some characters are a little more reserved, and to be honest, like, the show, like, the book plays it like those characters are weird. But in reality, like, that makes more sense. You know, you don't just like, oh, 10 years are up, now I'm gonna go right back to where I was. So I mean, I think they're more reasonable, but the book is trying to play it like they're not reasonable, which is kind of odd. Also, like, the other guy just for some reason is just like, whoa, like, look at her. Ooh. Without her really doing anything that special, it's just like, oh, she's like a little bold, and it's like, okay, that's so tropey that I just, ugh. I don't know. It's just kind of like, really? Do you need to do that? Yeah. I mean, I don't know. It's just kind of like, okay. Other ideas in the series. This secondary character that I'm too lazy to find a picture of because it's really not worth my time. He is like, his personality shifts from being like the worst person ever to like, I love you. And he's like, oh, you're so good, I love you. And he'll just like irrationally do things that just, I would say, make very little sense. Her brother, I think, is actually the only character that has a semblance of like, I kind of like this person. It's very strange, but like her brother, like her brother is like the only character that I think is like semi reasonable, and I actually kind of feel for him. All the other characters are like one note. The quote unquote villainess, is her, but that quote unquote hero or heroine in the story is like super attached to her, to the point where like I don't even understand how she like originally was even considered a villain, because like this heroine just does not care about anything that she does. Like, she could punch her in the face and she just wouldn't even react. She'd be like, no, that's fine, it's cool, I love it. So it's like, what? How are you even like, what? Why are you even a villain in the original story? Like, what exactly does she do that changes everything so abruptly and so rapidly that the story is so different in the original? Like, I really don't know. I mean, based on how like the perspective is from that heroine, I have absolutely no clue what that original character could do that would change that. As far as like plot points go, like typical, like, oh, there's the big bad like off in the corner, doing like crazy things, and then like no one knows about this person. They're just like, oh, I'm actually the one that did everything that was bad, and it's like, oh man, okay. And then like her character might not have actually been a villain. And it's like, okay, haha. It's just so meh. It's very mid. They're not really like trying to do something, I would say, that's super unique for the most part. Like I said, there are elements where I'm like, oh yeah, no, okay, that's kind of cool, but they don't really like commit to doing these interesting ideas. Like they allude to her having, like superhuman like physicality at times, but they don't really commit to that. They'll take a guy's personality one direction and then they'll just break it into the other direction. It's like, well, what is it? Like, you need to like make the characters like logical. They have to hold up throughout a story. They can't just switch on a dime and then you're just like, I have no clue what I'm gonna get when I see this character. They could be evil, they could be good, I have no clue. It's just like, what am I even supposed to work with here? I don't know. And it's not like, oh, conniving, like, oh, their personality switches because they're hiding things. It's like, no, they just switch. It's just like a switch that flicked, and now they're just this way. Also, like, there's weird things that I feel like people don't put as much stock in, but like a real scenario they would. Like, she cannot be healed by magic and things like that. But they really don't like talk about it that much. Like, they address it a little here and there, but you'd think that would be a big deal. if magic and things like that either are completely ineffective or super, super minor in their effectiveness, it's like you would think that that would be a little bit of a bigger deal, right? Like, the only people that can do it are like the highest tier of mages, and it's like, well, why? I mean, you would think people would ask. You know, I think I would be curious. I'd be like, well, why? Why is that working like that? I think the last major thing I want to cover is probably the whole SAE. So we're talking story, art, and enjoyment. Story? You know? Or art? Ooh. Now here's a rough one. Some of the art looks immaculate. Some of the other art looks dog shit. Like, it's so hit or miss. If you see the demonoid-esque characters in the series, they look so off compared to every other character that it's like, it's weird. It's like, it's unsettling. Like, they look odd. So I feel like the art I mean this very genuinely. It ranges from like a 2 to a 7. Like, sometimes it looks incredible, and then sometimes it's like, what is that? As far as enjoyment goes, you know, I'll give it a 7 because it was like fun bad at times, and other times it was just fine. And I think, you know, if I range this a little bit, I would say final rating would probably be somewhere between a 5 and a 6 for me. It's okay. I wouldn't say it's necessarily bad because it is fun to read, but it's not going to be your favorite series, and I don't think you're necessarily going to love it or anything. Yeah, I mean, I think that's about it. I'd appreciate if you could, you know, like, comment, subscribe, blah, blah, blah. Maybe list another series that you want me to talk about below. Even if I read it, I'll read it again. I don't care. Yeah, I'll see ya.